Compared to the Z, the X has a simpler dynamic brief that prioritizes comfort, which it more successfully satisfies. It also offers some more avant-garde design aspects. The X is longer and taller than a typical large SUV, but it isn't nearly as bluff. It shares a platform and all-wheel steered, air-sprung axles with the Z. Given that it is available with both a 2 and a 3-row cabin, it is comparable to an extended Jaguar I-Pace. Additionally, it employs some clever practicality enhancing techniques. The outer second-row chairs can motor outboard of their typical positions to make ingress easier, and then inboard again and backwards on their bases to make for greater reclining area in the variant with individual second-row seats rather than a 3-seater bench. Motorized, rear-hinged suicide rear doors that open particularly wide to admit you provide access to those seats. You can practically step in, stand up in the back row, and then sit down, as if in a train carriage, thanks to the half-gullwing roof panel that hinges upward along the roof spine. The inside of the X is dominated by fully networked digital touchscreens. There is a tablet-sized touchscreen in the second row and 2 enormous ones in the front, one of which is immediately in front of the passenger and the other of which is hanging portrait style as the more conventional central infotainment display. The offering is completed by a completely digital instrument screen. Our test vehicle's screens weren't entirely functional because it was built for the Chinese market and lacked a European broadband connection. When they do, though, they should provide quite a digital overload. The primary infotainment console's usage is challenging because it integrates most auxiliary systems and adjustability features, much like a Tesla's does. Want to swivel a door mirror or unlock a back door from a distance? The appropriate touchscreen menu is required. The steering column may also be moved, and the ventilation controls can be changed. It's rather overwhelming at first, and until you get used to knowing which functions can be changed while you're moving and which must be set before you leave, it might be distracting. The good news is that the TV-sized display in the front passenger seat can be turned off when not in use and isn't bothersome from the driver's seat because of its directional pixels. If just for people of average height and below, space is plentiful in rows 1 and 2 and just about adult appropriate in row 3, so it's relatively class typical. Although the material quality isn't quite up to par with Audi or the most recent Range Rover, it's nevertheless astounding given that this is Human Horizon's first ever production vehicle and that it was created, engineered, and delivered to the road in just 3.5 years. Driving is done in a semi-recumbent stance rather than an upright off-roader position, and the front seats are comfy and customizable. The one significant drawback is the rearward sight, which is embarrassingly limited in the rearview mirror unless you're content to use the rearview camera, which most buyers of a car like this will undoubtedly be delighted to do. Similar to the Z, the X seems isolated, refined, and comfy while driving despite not being particularly big, heavy, or ungainly. Even though it's not an exhilarating drive, it controls and manipulates its mass intelligently and keeps its occupants comfortable while doing so. It also lacks little in terms of modern suspension and steering technology. There is a plenty of performance, but there is also excellent maneuverability and restrained body control. Of course, a 2.6-ton, high-rise EV has about as much long-lasting driver appeal as you might imagine, and our test car's secondary ride on German rural roads had a slight touch of excitability that might have been better subdued by its variable air suspension. However, the X generally succeeds in hitting its dynamic targets. It's obvious that this is not a car for those who are dubious about some brands' apparent determination to transform their newest vehicles into completely unified electronic mobility gadgets, a transformation that mobile phones underwent 20 years ago. Whether we like it or not, a lot of cars, electric ones in particular, appear to be moving in that direction.